The True Story of Keith Haring with Mrs. Farr. Growing up, Keith Haring, was born in 1958. I was born in Pennsylvania, and I grew up in Pennsylvania too. My father made cartoons. Since I was little, I had been doing cartoons, creating characters and stories. In my mind, though, there was a separation between cartooning and being an artist. That's me using a ham radio. So what did I do? I moved to New York City and went to art school. I met my best friend in New York City in art school. His name was Basquiat. There he is on the right, and there I am on the left. I'd been convinced to go to art school by my parents and guidance counselor. They said that if I was going to seriously pursue being an artist, I should have some commercial art background. I went to a commercial art school where I quickly realized that I didn't want to be an illustrator or graphic designer. The people I met who were doing it seemed really unhappy. They said they were only doing it for a job while they did their own art on the side. But in reality, that was never the case. Their own work was lost. I quit the school. In New York City in 1980, I started a series of pieces of art in the subway stations. There were these blank areas where no advertisements were hanging, and they looked like chalkboards. So I took white chalk and I drew images that I felt were amusing and silly, or that I felt might open people's minds to some things going on. Like in South Africa, the system of apartheid on the left, and my silly image on the right. Along with advertisements, there was a lot of graffiti already in the subway. There's one of my pieces, and there I am, sitting on the subway. Many of these photographs come from the Keith Haring Foundation. The Keith Haring Foundation has many photographs by Tsing Kwang Chi. In this image, there are so many things you can barely even count them. Do you see a winged man? Can you find the campfire? Do you see a snake? A running dog-headed human? An atomic bomb? I used all of the space. Negative space is all used with pattern, design, line, and shape. My lines were turned into shapes, and those shapes were symbols. I was impressed by Egyptian hieroglyphs. There is within all forms a basic structure and indication of the entire object with a minimum of lines that becomes a symbol, I said in 1978. How else does this image remind you of ancient Egypt? Although my ideas were sometimes high and mighty, I always had a sense of humor and enjoyed my life. Here I am, almost laughing at myself. On the left, there's a picture of me, Andy Warhol, and Basquiat. We were friends, which was amazing to me, since I grew up knowing who Andy Warhol was. There's a picture I did, a painting of Andy Warhol wearing Mickey Mouse ears and floating in money. What do you think it all means? Here's a couple more images. By this time, 1981, 1982, I really had to have an agent, and I had to have a gallery sell my paintings. The reason is my work was getting too well known, and it was starting to cause a lot of buzz in the art world, which meant that some people were trying to take advantage of me. They'd come by my gallery and just want to give me a few dollars for my work. Well, I knew better than that, and eventually, both for time reasons and for equity reasons, I had a gallery sell my work for me. I was really busy, always creating art. I never stopped drawing. However, I didn't really like having a gallery in some ways because it seemed like I was sort of selling out. I wanted art to be different and maybe free. That's part of the reason I started the street art anyway. Well, nowadays, sometimes people still take advantage of the art that I made. For instance, on the top left, it's not certain that printing, that cushion with the heart, is actually paid for with funds going back to my foundation. They may have just stolen the image and put it on a pillow. Here are two children playing with or looking at the largest jigsaw puzzle ever made from my work. There are several icons or symbols that you will see repeated over and over again in my work. Do you see the dolphins? Do you see the barking dog? Do you see holes in people? Those are just a few of the symbols that I used over and over again, and I had meanings attached to those. Here's a work I did that had a symbolic meaning for me and for the people of France. I painted the Statue of Liberty on a building in Paris. The Statue of Liberty was given to the United States as a reminder that we stood for liberty and justice, accepted all people, and she even has broken shackles at her feet, representing that she, the Lady Liberty, was against slavery. I was generous with my time. Mike, hope you like the shirts and drawings. I draw nonstop, so do not mind doing them for you because you take the trouble to write me. Good luck, Keith Haring. So a friend of his had written them. We didn't have email in those days. And I did some art for him. I was always there for my friends. I always wanted to stand up for things that I saw were evil. Control is evil. All stories of white men's expansion and colonization and domination are filled with horrific details of the abuse of power and the misuse of people. I was really upset about apartheid. Apartheid seemed to me like a repeat of history. It was sort of a repeat of slavery. It was a repeat of the way that Europeans came into America and just pushed Native Americans aside. To me, apartheid needed to end. My activism helped end apartheid. If you ever heard of Nelson Mandela, he was a South African very involved in the cause. I was an American trying to help. Unfortunately, I contracted a very new disease, the virus HIV that causes AIDS, and I started to get sick, along with a lot of other people. It didn't stop me from working. It didn't stop me from doing things for other people. In fact, one of the things that I found I really enjoyed doing was working with kids with their art and illustrating children's books. My life wasn't completely in vain, and though I was getting sicker and sicker, I never stopped drawing. Recently, my sister, my little sister, Kay, made a book about my story. There she is on the right. Isn't she great? Unfortunately, I did eventually succumb to the virus that causes AIDS, and I died. However, even today, exhibitions show my work, like this one going on in Liverpool, England until November. Even today, people recognize my work, and even though I'm dead, my work and my impact live on. Thank you for listening to my story.